Good afternoon, my dear fellow viewers and listeners of Dr. Paul Kibicho, PhD, QBHSC official YouTube channel. I had discussed about factors that make men to leave their wives, and for me to be fair and just, I thought it was equally important for me to come and share with you reasons that also make women to leave their men. One of the things that makes wives to leave their husbands is this aspect of not her man to be seen to have lost interest in her. The moment a woman realizes that there is no more interest which is coming from the husband, women tend to think that their days are gone, and therefore they think of how to leave their husbands. So her man may have lost interest in her is one aspect that makes women to leave their husbands. Point number 2, allegation of cheating. There is nobody who sits comfortably pretty when he or she realizes that the man or the woman that he or she is with is having other relationships out there. So allegation of cheating is one key thing that makes a woman to feel like leaving the husband. It becomes very painful, and I have seen many marriages being dissolved as a result of cheating. They feel betrayed, and over and above all, they are very obsessive. They want to protect their children and themselves, and to ensure that their husbands are only loving them alone without any other outside relationship. So that's another thing that makes women to leave their husbands. Number 3 is what we call expired love. Expired love is when you feel there's nothing in common, there's nothing that attracts you to your spouse. So if the wife feels that she's no longer, there's nothing that brings about what we call the emotional attachment and feeling to the husband, choices are that she's going to divorce her husband. Women also tend to leave their husbands when there's what we call a codependent situation or space. When a woman feels that the husband is also equally putting a lot of pressure to the wife in terms of supporting the family financial obligations, they're never comfortable when it comes to that particular situation. So when the wife and the husband becomes so-called dependent, ordinarily it may appear to be what Christians would advocate for. But there comes a time when women feel they have been pushed to the corner by the person they claim to be their husband, and therefore this one also leads to what we call dissolution of marriage. A woman feels emotionally drained, more so when financial matters are handled by her in larger proportions as opposed to her husband. I have talked about the issue of trust. Trust means the woman realizes that the husband has bought a piece of land that was not being disclosed to her. The woman goes and buys a car without even having shared any information to that particular major and grand decision. She feels the aspect of mistrust comes in. When a woman realizes that the man is splashing money out there, when in actual sense their very base has what we call shortage of cash and finances, it makes that woman to vent out her anger by actually leaving her husband. The other thing is what we call the in-laws. There are some in-laws who do not support wives when they come to their fault, and their husbands who don't even protect their wives. If a wife realizes that she's not being protected by the man who brought her into that particular family, chances of that marriage lasting are very minimal. So women want to see the man playing his role well by ensuring that the cordial relationship gets entrenched into that particular family she has come to. If she realizes something to the contrary, automatically that relationship or that marriage is headed to what we call dissolution. Of course, I talked about lack of intimacy between couples. There are many couples in Kenya today, they sleep and they stay in the same house for public relations exercise, not because they love each other, not because they have anything in common, but because they want to avoid what we call being labeled as divorcees by the outside world. But in actual sense, they have nothing in common. They sleep in different beds, but they appear to be together, praying to the public gallery, but in actual sense, there's no intimacy between the two. Too much glaring differences. When a couple realizes that they are 2 worlds apart, that there's nothing that brings them together. There's no sense of togetherness and belonging. That also makes women to leave their husbands. The other thing is what we call men are not ready to get married. If a woman behaves in a manner likely to suggest that she has married this man, which ought to be the other way around, many women tend to say, I'm not going to raise my husband like my child, whereas I've got the actual children under my care. So that aspect of seeing as if the woman is the one supporting the husband from A to Z makes them to take that bitter option of calling it quits in a relationship. Men, be careful. The other thing is what we call lack of appreciation. When a lady does something very good, just like I talked about in the men flaunt, I also would equally expect men to appreciate their wives. If a wife has done something good, appreciate her. If she keeps the house clean, if she keeps herself very tidy and clean, if she has observed her diet to the point of becoming a model, if she has done her hair well, appreciate her. If she has done something worthwhile within the family, please appreciate her. Women, when they feel just like men, when a woman realizes that she's not being appreciated for whatever she has done, the absolute decision made by them is actually to quit that particular marriage. So men, I would also wish to advise you to start appreciating whatever your wives do. If possible, always appreciate your spouse. Too much pressure. There are men who have taken their wives as what we call a kite. For those who understand what a kite is. A kite is a small thing that is normally tied to a string, and that kite, it is released into the air, but the string is still held by the person throwing it to the air. That's a very terrible situation. I have heard a case where a man is too obsessive of the wife that wherever the wife goes, the man becomes suspicious. If you put too much pressure on somebody, automatically that pressure must be vented out. Now, in a marriage, when women realize that they have been put under a lot of intense pressure, they tend to call it quits. So I would urge men to be very, very considerate, to understand their wives, so that those wives that we have in our homes will not reach a point whereby, because of that unnecessary pressure, they call it quits. Then too much controlling. Women don't require to be controlled like children also. They require to have their freedom and space. And I can say here that the moment you allow your woman to be, she will never misbehave out there. Those women that you normally go having relationships with other men is because they are not, number one, valued at home. Number two, they are not treated with respect. They are not appreciated. And there is no good compliment that comes from their husbands. So if a woman realizes that anytime, whatever she does, when she's seeking what we call permission to do whatever it is she wants to do, when you become too controlling that every 10 minutes you're making a call to inquire her whereabouts, that you need to come and even take a bit of time to go through her phone call logs, that you must tell her to give you the phone to see how many people she called during daytime and how many of male species had called her during the day, then I can tell you that is pressure they don't stomach. Automatically this woman is going to leave you. You will be left alone in that house. The other thing is long-distance relationships. I can tell you, long-distance relationships are not the best. That one I can tell you. The moment you start going for 3 weeks without meeting your spouse, the world that we live in today, it's very hard for you to find that particular person intact. So we normally recommend where possible. Of course, sometimes due to nature of our work, we normally go out, sometimes for a whole week, which that one is understandable. And of course, when a woman goes for a whole week, or when a husband goes for a whole week, there must be fruits to be seen out of that absence. You cannot go for a whole week and you come home empty-handed. You cannot go out there for a whole week and you come starting making quarrels to your spouse, either to your husband, either to your wife. That is not acceptable. Sometimes long distance relationships don't work. They do not see the light of the day. That you have a wife in Nyeri, you live in Nairobi, and your wife is beautiful, she has everything. I can tell you for sure that it takes the hand of God for that relationship to be genuinely secured. So long distance relationships, sometimes they do have issues, and sometimes divorce becomes inevitable, especially from women. If a woman realizes that the man is going for 6 months, 1 year without coming back home, they of course they have, everything has got what we call its elasticity space. Up to what level can you absorb this? Even a mattress, even a sponge, it has what we call the absorption position. It can't absorb everything. There comes a time when it can't absorb anymore. Similarly, in a relationship, when the husband is away for quite a long time, which becomes rather frequent, sometimes wives or women tend to kill that particular relationship, and they look for a person who is near them to offer the much needed emotional support. The other thing, as I conclude this discussion, is what we call career differences. There are some people, there are some men and women, the husbands and wives, when they marry, initially they married because of love. And as time went by, they realized that although love was there, whatever each of them is doing is not adding value to their relationship. So maybe the husband is a medical doctor, the wife is a teacher. Maybe the husband is a marketer, the wife is a nurse. Sometimes career differences also do occasion what we call separation and divorce. And I would advocate that if you are there and you're in a relationship, if you are a woman and you require to be guided more on how to manage your marriage. Personally, I've been married for 30 years, so I'm not speaking from a point of ignorance. I give glory to God because my wife has not run away, not because we don't have issues. We do have issues. Every marriage has issues. Do not be lied to. Do not assume because you see a husband and wife driving in the same car, sometimes even exchanging pleasantries, that they love each other, and that their marriage has never had what we call some turbulences. All marriage institutions have had turbulences at one point or another. The only difference, we all have what we call, sometimes we do have what we call shortcomings. Everybody has got shortcomings. Now, but what matters most is how do you handle those shortcomings. So I would call upon married men and married women to sit down and see how best they can work out for their relationship. Because even if today I left my wife and gotten another woman, the same problems I'm experiencing with my wife now, they will not go anywhere. They will still be there. It all depends on how I handle them. So instead of going to look for another relationship that will take a lot of time again, and remember, we do not have the luxury of time. Mapema do your best. This is the only time that we have in our lives. I will never go back to 40 years. I will not go back to 30 years. So that is now bygone. So the best thing to ask yourself, how best can I be able to mold my spouse to make the very best? You can make lemonade out of lemons. It is not about, and I'll tell you this for free. Allow me to as I had this particular story, journey of talking about why women leave their husbands. There was a king. And this king, he had a servant who was so faithful to him for more than 15 years. So faithful. Of course, when this servant was being employed, he was told the terms and conditions of getting that job. The king was rearing lions, a pride of lions within his first piece of land. Anybody who misbehaved or worked contrary to what the king said, the punishment was to be mauled, M-A-U-L-E-D, by those pride of lions. So at one point, this good servant who had served the king for 15 years, the good servant messed up for the first time to the king. He messed up. He messed the king up. The king was so aggrieved. The king was so furious. He was so flabbergasted. He was so, let me say, that he was very furious. And the only thing that he did was to follow the decrees that he had given. Remember, the decree that he had given was that whoever misbehaved in that particular kingdom was going to be put in that official residence of the king. He was going to be put into that den of lions. So when this servant who had served him for 15 years messed up with the king, he went to the king to plead to him not to be thrown to the lions, to be mauled by the lions. But the king could hear none of it. But through God's intervention, this servant of God requested the king to be given just 10 days to go and tell his family members that his life was coming to an end. And the king obliged. So what this guy did, what the servant of the king did, he did not go home. As a matter of fact, he went to talk to the workers who were attending to the lions and requested them to relax for 10 days and for him to take up the mantle of feeding the lions. So he fed the lions for 10 days. Now, upon expiry of the 10 days, the servant of the king went back to the king now to have his punishment meted upon him. So it was the tradition of the king to invite very many people into that particular compound to see how people behaved as they got mauled by the lions. To the amusement of the king, when this good servant was thrown into the den of lions, the lions did not consume him. The king was bewildered. He was completely bewildered. How come these lions have not consumed this servant? So the lions just looked at this person and they never even put a splash on his body. The king was so amused. The king was so surprised to see the cannibals not attacking the flesh of this young man. So of course the king now had to order the servants to go and get back this good servant back to him. And the servant was asked one simple question: how come the lions refused to devour you? And the servant said, I have been serving you for 15 years and I have never messed with you even a single moment. Your lordship, what I did when I begged to be given 10 days to go and say goodbye to my family members, I requested the lion's attendants to give me at least 10 days to feed the animals, your lions, so that when your time came to throw me into them, we had already formed a relationship. I have been so faithful to you for 15 years. How come because of one simple mistake, you wanted me to be killed by the lions? Hebu tafakari hiyo. Marriage is about caring, listening to each other, forgiving each other, working together, embracing each other, loving each other, sharing moments, and realizing that marriage life is not an event. It's a lifetime commitment. May God bless you. Should you be having a group of women and men that you require to be taken through what we call marriage counseling, even premarital counseling, even having what we call couple seminar, kindly don't hesitate to call me on 0722 633 021. 0722 633 021. We'll engage each other and see how best we can make our marriages work. May God bless you. Should I, if in any way I might have hurt your heart, H-U-R-T, H-E-A-R-T, in the event that I might have hurt your heart, please remember we say in our Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. May God bless you. Always a pleasure talking to you. Shalom, shalom, shalom.